when I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
my head up.
I'm South Carolina, so I just
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Morris?
Oh, my heart.
Happy 20th anniversary.
My heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? John.
And dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself.
The doctor lived next door to the janitor, to the reverend, and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Doni, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it for all and more.
Letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
Top of the morning to you. All right. Today, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're talking about reparations. If you are black, if you are of African descent, then, and your people have been here 300, 400 years, then we're talking to you. Reparations. What are reparations? The making of amends. The making of amends for a wrong one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wrong. Without further ado, we're going to talk with today's guest. His name is Mr. John P. Comer. John, how are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. What's happening with you? You got a new film coming out?
Yeah. Documentary called Pay Up, Get Out of the Way, which we filmed exclusively in Baltimore and Baltimore residents. And we've been doing screenings around it. The next screening is actually tomorrow at Arena Players at 6 p.m. So we do a screening, then we have a discussion because the film makes people want to discuss. It's that solid of a film.
Tell me more. What prompted you to do this?
So about 5 or 6 of us had sat around a round table, and we were talking about, doing some work around reparations and applying for a few grants. None of the grants of which mention reparations, so we were just putting reparations into the grant proposal. And so we went through about 3 grants and got turned down. And then there was one that actually did mention reparations, and we qualified for that and received the grant to do the work. So at that point in time, and I can't really remember exactly what we were talking about, but I think we were talking about some way of redistributing some of the money. And when I went out to some of the neighborhoods I used to organize in very heavily, which were McCullough Homes, Gilmore Homes, and Perkins Homes at one point in time, I hit the ground as an organizer and just talked to a number of people and asked them how did they feel about reparations. And, I'm not completely bothered by when people say, we're not going to get it or they're not going to give it to us. But what I can't really allow to happen is for our people to be uneducated, uninformed about what reparations is. So I came back to the group after talking to a bunch of people, and I was like, listen, we need something that's going to help to educate and inform our people and hopefully add to any organizing efforts moving forward. So I said we needed to do a documentary. And, you know, for the most part, people were like, what? A documentary? And I was like, yeah, like we need something that we can really put together that people can see and learn from and be inspired by, and for lack of a better term. And almost 2 years later, here we are. You know, the film was just completed months ago. And, you know, we started with screening at Terra Cafe. And then that was during Kwanzaa. And then I believe we went to Empowerment Temple, did a screening and discussion there. Then the Garage, then Cherry Hill Marketplace, then Morgan State University. Then we did one this past Saturday at Liberty Village at the Liberty Rec Center. Like all of the discussions are very productive, very solid, and it's a lot of people showing up to weigh in. So I believe the film is actually accomplishing at least some of what we set out to do.
And so what were those goals when you first set out? Obviously to inform, to educate.
Yeah, to inform, educate, and use it as a tool to help mobilize people. But you know, the issue is that a lot of elected officials, and I'm talking around the country and Baltimore, there are states, there are municipalities, there's a bill in Congress, HR 40. It's being talked about somewhere in a lot of these places, but what I would really love for us to do is to be able to talk about it within our communities, in our homes, on the block, wherever we are. Like the word reparations should be something that we take ownership of, and truly, you know, we're not going to agree on everything, but you know, people need to be able to know what it is and what it's about, so that when these bills come down, or you know, opportunities arise and there's certain entities calling something reparations, we need to be able to say that's not reparations. That's not. We need to be able to name it, right? And because if we don't name it, then other people will name what reparations are and say, hey, you got reparations, you know, and we don't, you know, we need to be a bit more strategic about it in some form or fashion.
Who should be assisting you, John?
So I want to really just say, folks in the community, like there are regular strategists, activists, circles that are discussing it. You know, what I try to do with the discussions is I invite in thought leaders from around the city to help to guide some of the discussion as well. We had a room full of youth at Cherry Hill, and like high school students, and they were tuned in, and you know, they were tuned in. I watched the room, you know, I watched to see how many heads were down, and it just wasn't a thing. They were really being informed, and even afterwards, some of the students asked, I want to show this in my history class. I want to show this at my school. And then there's always other folks that are saying, you know, I want to show this here and here. And that's what we want. And the plan is to eventually release it online. You know, we're not charging anyone. It's not at a cost. We just need your time, your openness, your conversation, because there are also 2 bills in the state of Maryland that's going to be coming down, and they're tagged with the word reparations. So with all of this kind of going around us, we really need to be informed. So, you know, that's
Let
bringing
me
in.
let me ask you, John. We have our first black governor in the state. Is this something that you want him to be a part of? I mean, obviously you do. So I guess a better question is: have you reached out to the first black governor of the state of Maryland, Wes Moore?
Not at the time. There is a clip within the film that kind of reminds us of a statement that the governor made about bringing and repairing communities. So a lot of that at this point in time, I'm just focused on community and then mobilizing, folks thereafter. This film kind of helps people dig in, want to be mobilized, and hopefully connect with some of the things that are already in place, some of the organizations that are already kind of building around that. I'm not necessarily, I'm trying to do it as collectively as I possibly can. And that's why, bringing in certain people to kind of talk and help to guide the conversation is very important.
Who are those people?
So everyone from, Dr. Ray Winbush to LBS, Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, to Eric Jackson, to David Funkunle, who sits on the Maryland Lynching Commission, to other folks in our community that have experience in environmentalism. I know you just interviewed Tanera Cullins. She has a environmental background. She spoke in the film. And honestly, I'm constantly seeking out different people. I just don't want to, I want to be able to have a range of experience and people that come from various backgrounds to speak on reparations.
So is there a central website that people can go to say, hey, I support reparations?
Yeah, so we have a website set up, www.baltimorereparations.com. I think sometimes people might get the spelling mixed up, but it's REPARATIONS.org. www.baltimorereparations.org. You can sign up there, get your email, get updates. But also, like, once we release the film, ideally we want, people to be able to show the film within their homes and have a discussion about it. We'll probably have a toolkit that comes along with that, with certain questions and certain points to hit on.
So let me ask you, John, suppose I live in New York. You want me still to go to baltimorereparations.org?
Yeah, so what's been happening is we've been getting requests because people have seen the trailer online. I posted it to my Facebook page. It's been shared a number of times. There are other folks that have sent the trailer out to folks in Philly and all of that, and they're ready to screen it. They want to screen it because at the end of the day, although we focused on reparations, Black folks throughout this country have been living under similar or the same oppressive systems, and we've experienced so much of the same thing. So it resonates across city, state lines, potentially country lines as well.
Let me ask it a different way. You are an organizer.
Yes.
If I'm from Las Vegas, if I'm Black and I'm from Texas, you still want me to go to baltimorereparations.org. Put differently,
without a doubt.
Put differently, is there going to be a texasreparations.org or a New York reparations.org?
No, not in my purview at this point, but we welcome anyone who wants to show it. But my focus is Baltimore. That's my main focus, and that's why we've been doing so many screenings at Black-led, Black-owned institutions throughout the city. And because we're online, other people are going to see it, especially like in places like, you know, if it's on Facebook and stuff like that, because, you know, people have friends all throughout the country. So, you know, people anywhere can sign up for it and see it. But
I got a quick solution that just came to mind.
What's that?
And it won't even take a lot of money. You got BaltimoreReparations.org. Maybe buy USReparations.org and send them to the same joint. Send them to the same link and forward it to BaltimoreReparations.org. That way you cover the whole country in one swoop. And you can promote BaltimoreReparations.org and USReparations.org all in the same breath, and not have to do 52 websites or 50 websites or however. Just a thought. Because like with listen to this. Just like with BeMoreNews.com, that's why we came up with this network, BlackUSA.News, because if I'm covering news in Jacksonville, Florida, they're like, I don't know what the hell Be More News is. Even though in Baltimore, everybody know Be More News, but Jacksonville might feel a little more comfortable with Black USA. You know, I just a thought.
No, I actually agree with you. You know, you're full of ideas and full of many good ideas, and I think that's another one. So I think that's another one to consider. The one thing I do know is that many times the country watches Baltimore, like regardless of whether, you know.
Where are you from?
Yeah.
Did you tell me Ohio?
So I was born in New Orleans, and my family.
New Orleans.
Yeah, but my family moved to Raleigh, Durham, or Raleigh, North Carolina, when I was about 6 or 7, and
I didn't know you was from the dirty, man.
Man, I think you did know that.
Man, you from you down there with the po' boys and the etouffee.
Hey, a lot of good food down there, and honestly, like the best thing to happen to me was really I've always moved and kind of felt more at home in northern cities. I used to live in New York. I used to organize there. I've organized in Chicago and a few other cities.
You did a black tour.
You know, in many ways, one day I hope to write a book about it. So, because
I got 2 of them. I got to push you on that. Look here. And New Orleans, you just got to know there's a lot of history in New Orleans. But my mentors say I don't promote my books enough. That's Unapologetically Black, talking about the interrelationship of politics and economics. We can have all of the black elected officials in the world, but if it ain't translating into money for our community, it don't mean diddly squat. And then I Am Black Wall Street. A lot of people think that Black Wall Street started and ended in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But I'm here to tell you, it was a black man from Louisiana named Henry Adams. He, along with others, helped a lot of blacks escape the Deep South and sent them to Kansas. They had a whole movement sending blacks to Kansas, sending blacks to Liberia in Africa.
Yeah.
Also in this book, I uncovered that your state, Louisiana, had the richest black people in America.
Yeah.
That's because of the French influence, and the French weren't as racist as the British.
Indeed.
So they let black people hold on to that dollar with a little more. They were a little more liberal about it. Up here, you know, in the English, in the British states, you got the likes of Andrew Jackson and George Washington, a lot of these guys from Britain, and they had a different form. You know, then you think about the Louisiana Purchase. With the Louisiana Purchase, this country expanded. There was already 1/3 taken up, but with the Louisiana Purchase, that included the other 2/3 of the country on the other side of the Mississippi. So Louisiana has, man, I've been to your city, man. I love it's so much history, Spanish history. We don't even know that if it weren't for the British, this country might be speaking Spanish.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very different makeup down there, but you know, honestly, I can only claim Louisiana up to a certain point. I go there, I visit there many different times over the years. It's a beautiful place. It's still a whole lot for me to learn about that. But like, my developing years mostly was in Raleigh, Durham.
Well,
And anytime that when I was working, moving around, doing different organizing in different cities, I grew up in those neighborhoods as well because it was so deeply grassroots that like, um, like I'm still growing. I'm still growing up. That's the way I see it, right? Like, so at the end of the day, any new community that I begin organizing in, everything is from the ground up. You grow. In Baltimore, I've been in Baltimore since 2011, and Baltimore has grown me in so many different ways
can you
as well.
cook a crab cake?
Oh man, you about to disqualify me because I can't cook a crab cake.
I ain't saying you
I tell
can't.
you,
Hey, look.
I tell you what. When I came up here, I used to look at the crabs like, man, I ain't eating that. That's too much work for me to get that little bit of meat out of it.
That's
But
not. Well, what about a crawfish?
man, all right. Well, that's you know what. All right. But look though, but so at the end of the day, just like in Louisiana, it's a very cultural thing. It's other things that come with it. It's fellowship, it's community, it's building across the that's what I had learned about Baltimore. And so, once I had somebody to sit down and show me how to eat the crab, and we laid out
Well,
all the
let me tell you,
newspaper.
don't use no knife. Use your hands.
I never use the knife. I don't even
Okay,
know. I
okay.
don't even use a mat. I barely use the mallet or
Good,
the
good for you. Yeah, just enough,
yeah.
just enough to break it. That's it. Just bop.
I was taught right. I was taught
Right.
right early on when I got to Baltimore.
But New Orleans and Baltimore got a lot in common. Both seaport cities.
I say that. Yep.
The music. When I go to New Orleans, man, the love of music makes me. And then what's it called, the first line. The first
Yeah.
line with
Second line.
with second line. Forgive my ignorance.
Yeah.
The second line, and then when Katrina happened, let me tell you, bud, Baltimore got busy with Katrina. Baltimore helped a lot of people who went through that ordeal.
I met a number of people when I was in McCullough Homes organizing that was from New Orleans, and I had that same discussion with them. I said, doesn't Baltimore and the people here remind you a lot of New Orleans? And the answer was yes, and it was for the same reasons that some of the same things you just mentioned. Like, it's a port city, we're on the water, so it's a very black city, very proud city, very strong city, but also, fighting through our struggles as well. So,
And the gold teeth. New Orleans,
and the gold teeth. Some people in Baltimore don't want to talk about that, but the gold teeth, the fishing. I go down to the harbor. Well, I've been down to the harbor and seen a brother out there fishing with gold teeth, straight from Baltimore. Got his crab. What do you call it? Crab trap. All of that, man.
That's it.
And I was like, yo, like, this is a beautiful thing. Like, because Baltimore is the rhythm and the vibe of Baltimore can be hard to catch. Like, if you're not from here, you could come and thinking that it's gonna move like New York, and maybe in certain glimpses you might see something that looks like that, but then it becomes something different. If you go to the west side or you go down to Cherry Hill, like, it's a beautiful mixture of you. Like, you can tell the mixture and the history of the people that came here, and that's what's also important about this reparations conversation, because like, history continues. Like, we'll continue living history in ways that we don't even realize. And so our ancestors are still in us. We carry them with us every day, but we may not realize it, but they're here with us.
Also, I love you just mentioned it, in New Orleans, like a funeral is not just a funeral. A funeral is a celebration.
Celebration. That's right.
And it's easy to forget that when we are overcome with grief. That was our loved one. But one thing I appreciate about New Orleans is, and Louisiana overall, is the spiritual aspect. And I gotta tell you, the Black Indian thing in Mardi Gras, that's my SHIT, brother. That's my sugar honey iced tea. Because that's something that you talk about. What we don't talk about. We don't talk about the fact that a lot of us have indigenous roots. We let somebody else tell us who we are related to, and it's like, you don't even know my bloodline, son. How you gonna tell me who my great grandma was? How you gonna tell me that my great grandma wasn't Blackfoot or Cherokee or whatever you? And my people's have told me about the Cherokees or the Blackfoot and so on and so forth. So that's what the Black Indians and the history that has been stripped away from us. Me and you could be blood cousins, but we're gonna let this cat who ain't never had our best interests at heart tell me who John is to me.
Indeed. And and that's important for us to note in the process of learning about reparations, regardless of what order it comes in, because sometimes people can only see as far as their front porch because of so much that might be going on a little bit past their front porch or even within their household. But like reparations, I've worked on so many different issues over the years, a lot under criminal justice, death penalty issues, ex-felon voting rights issues, and then just like plain old community organizing and prioritizing what the community wants to do. And like, I haven't seen discussions like this as much with this reparations film or as much in the past as I am seeing with this reparations film. This is the glue. And I'm not just talking about the film, but like the topic, what needs to happen, because so many of us understand that we have to repair ourselves and we have to repair our communities. And part of that comes from within, in our own communities. That could be that's already begun in a lot of places, and we don't have to wait for a bill of reparations to come down to any of that. Because at the end of the day, if we're going to achieve reparations, we actually have to have a unified, and it doesn't have to be 100% unified, but it has to be unified before we ever mobilize to that. And if we mobilize, and if we actually are unified and mobilized towards that, that means that we can work on models of self-sustainability in our communities before we ever reach reparations.
You mentioned House HR 40. HR 40 said this bill establishes the commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans. The commission shall examine slavery and discrimination in the colonies and the United States from 1619 to the present and recommend appropriate remedies. The commission shall identify the role of the federal and state governments in supporting the institution of slavery, forms of discrimination in the public and private sectors against freed slaves and their descendants, and lingering negative effects of slavery on living African Americans and society. So let me just say to you, slavery goes back beyond 1619. And I want you to know that blacks have been in this country for hundreds and thousands of years. As a matter of fact, if we don't know our history, we will come to think that slavery is how most of us got here. Right. No one has ever proven that. In fact, we could be more prisoners of war than descendants of a slave trade, because no one can prove to you that your black people weren't here when the European first arrived. As we know,
Sure.
the Moors were dominating the Iberian Peninsula for 800 years. And that's where Christopher Columbus came from when he got money from Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain. But I just want to reiterate that the Moors, the black Moors dominated the Iberian Peninsula for 800 years. So any ships coming up out of there were black. And so once Columbus and Ferdinand and Isabella got their thing going and he come across here in 1492, he was only Johnny come lately at best. Secondly, there was a black man, a Spanish conquistador. His name was Juan Garrido, and he was the first black man in modern times to have come on the shores of America down in Florida. And let me just say this about Florida and Louisiana. I don't know a lot about, but those being port cities, and you look already, when you go downtown New Orleans, you look around, you got English culture. I mean, you barely see English, but you see a lot of French, you see the Spanish, you see Portuguese. We can't ignore what was going on also in those times, meaning Spain owned Florida until 1831. So if you were black and in Louisiana and you were enslaved and you escaped to Florida, you could get your freedom.
Yeah.
So not one last thing, not all blacks were slaves and not all whites were free.
Right. Right.
But this country,
and I guess that I guess that history right there is why I hear a number of people say that Florida wasn't the South. And geographically, of course, it is the South, but I think that's what they mean when they say Florida's not the South.
Spain owned it until 1831.
Yeah. And I'm getting
technically a part of America.
Right. But it is,
and that's why we got to know history. Me and some people close to me, we have this discussion often about why it's important to know history. Oh, well, it don't matter what happened back then. Yes, it does. Because if we know the story, that we don't know, for instance, the slavery was in South America at least 100 years before it was up north.
Yeah.
So Brazil has Brazil has the largest population free blacks outside.
Yeah, and I've been to Brazil and broke bread with Afro-Brazilians over there and had many conversations about their life over there, and actually have done a couple meetings. But and it's a beautiful thing, and that has grown me in so many ways, right? But like the challenge that we're presented with is a number of us don't know our history, not to necessarily the fault of each individual, but because of systemic ways. But on the flip side of that, a lot of us don't even know our present, right? Like a lot of us don't even know our present. So there's so much information and educating that we have to do towards one another as an act of love, but also as an act of mobilizing, as an act of moving on issues for us to build a better community. So,
John, I'm gonna tell you, one of the enemies is the preacher. One of the enemies is the church. Let me tell you why. Brother, you gonna sit up there behind that pulpit, you gonna tell me about Simon Peter, about Judas, you gonna tell me about something 2,000 years ago. I want to know about the history of this country and my people. So you can tell me about something 2,000 years ago out of the Bible, but what about 800 years ago? What about 500 years ago?
So what do you think about the preachers that come from the James Cone Black Liberation model? There was I think he, you know what, I don't even want to say, I think he passed away, but if he didn't, please forgive me. But you know, there's a Black liberation theology text that this brother James Cone came up with, and a number of preachers actually come from that. And I, let me say, I don't go to church. I don't, but
we know that religion has been used to control us. We know that they gave us the slave Bible in many cases, which was an abbreviated form that only gave us certain aspects of the transformational power of the living Christ. We know that we've been limited, shortchanged, robbed, stuck up, miseducated, misdiagnosed, and a whole nine by some people who don't even know who the hell they are. So we got to go back. I was just reading, it said, study to show thyself approved. So if you're going to talk to me about the Bible and you can't tell me about the original Bible, if you're going to tell me about the Bible, you ain't never been to Ethiopia or understand, the original text, you can't tell me about God.
So you're a historian by every sense of the word, but like I feel like there's a process of piquing people's interest who have not been interested, and there's a process of giving that information, and sometimes I don't feel like that information is the most not the most important, but the information that you give up front. Like I think that people.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think people have to realize, what. About what Malcolm said is that we've been bamboozled. Because if you're in a trap and you haven't realized that you're in a trap, and somebody opens you up to what that trap is, your next response is to try to get the hell up out of that trap, right? Like it's looking around, it's realizing that, like, damn, I've been in a place thinking it's this, and it's actually this, and that. Lack of a better word, epiphany, because it's way deeper than an epiphany. Like, that actually is what carries a person through the rest of the history that we need to learn, through organizing, through fighting for ourselves, through becoming a asset to your community. That initial awakening is what carries you through, whatever you need to go through. And so, like, going back to the film, this is part of something that is meant to create an awakening, for people to be able to say, damn, I saw this film and I want to know more now, or what next? That's what a lot of folks ask. Like,
so we need to put a contest out there for our rappers. So since rap is a modern form of communication, let's get some of these rappers involved in our history, because here's one thing the rappers say. Let me just get this out, John. Let me just get this one thing out. If I hear one more of my beautiful black people, one of my beautiful black rappers say, I come from nothing, I made it into something. No, you don't. You come from greatness, son. Who told you come from nothing?
Indeed.
Who told you that? And where did you come to believe that hypocrisy?
Indeed.
You came from the greatest ancestors in the world, son. They built pyramids.
I'll say this. There are rappers that are spitting like that. And I used to be a rapper myself. Before I started organizing, I just checked myself, because I started rapping more righteous content. And I was like, you know what? I can't rap about it if I ain't out here doing it. And so then I just kind of put that down, because I was in Atlanta trying to get a record deal a long time ago. But anyway,
that's what you want. You still want it? You still want that record deal?
No, I do not. I do not. I'm good. Like, I found, like, when I started organizing, I found really why I feel like I'm supposed to be here, right? Like, it was something I always did well. I just didn't know that I had the skills, and this was back in high school, right? Like,
I saw a young lady, and they did a Harriet Tubman rap. It's on one of my Facebook pages, but it was three sisters, and they were dressed like back in the day, 1800s, but they were rapping about Harriet Tubman so hard. It was the hardest rap I've ever seen, because we're at a point now where we call our women bees so much. We've called them bees so much. They now refer to themselves as bees. And this is pedagogy of the oppressed. We have been inundated with so much sickness. We now inundate ourselves with this sickness, or the energy a brother puts into, I'm going to kill you. Yeah. Fool, you killing soldiers in your own army. Wake up, dumb. Or we calling ourselves in Baltimore, dummy. Hey, dummy. Where does this chicanery come from?
Yeah, I mean, it's what you said.
I don't want to be known for calling my brother dummy.
Yeah, and you know, and I mean, and I
even the police did a video. Hey, dummy. Hey, dummy. Come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's definitely, it's almost like every new generation or every other new generation, you know, and we're creative people, but like the language changes, but a lot of it still remains draped.
If you called a girl a bee in my day at 3 o'clock when that bell rang, you better put them up, because somebody's coming for your head.
Yeah, without a doubt. Like I'm from part of that era too. I remember that, right? I mean, even Queen Latifah and UNITY.
Who you calling a bee?
And then stole off on the dude, right? Like, so, you know, that self-respect needs to be restored. As far as I'm concerned, that's part of reparation. That's not necessarily reparations that somebody can give us. That's reparations that we have to give ourselves. You know, and some of that.
I can't be a comedian. I can't be a comedian because I can't publicly say the N-word as I would behind closed doors. I use it. I ain't gonna front on you, but I can't.
You know why? And I study comedy, right? I'm a big fan of it. You can be a comedian because the greatest comedians are truth tellers, right? The greatest comedians are truth tellers. So at the end of the day, I don't look at comedians. I mean, you got the comedians that.
There's got to be a code, though, John. It's got to be a code, because
got to be a code.
Too many of these cats put on that dress, and that's what Cat Williams talking about. These cats putting on his dress and saying it's funny. No, son, it's not funny. It's war against your people. It's war against the DNA of your people, son.
Man, I don't even get into them discussions, man. Like because like I have a little boy. I am conscious of what he consumes and what I teach him. But there are many types of personalities in our community that, you know, I feel like everyone in our community, some shape, form, or fashion, deserves to be acknowledged as a human being. Now, if you do something that I don't agree with, that's you, right? Like, you know, I can't.
But don't be over here shoving it down my throat. Don't shove it down my throat, and don't try to shove it down my kid's throat in school behind my back, because then we're gonna have a problem.
So I'll say this. I'll say a lot of who we have become and who we see ourselves as being is kind of at times, and this is why you were saying it's important to know your history. A lot of what we do are responses to trauma. And the one thing that I have come to understand is that I can't police how you respond to your trauma, because something potentially there's a foundation to that.
Amen.
There's a foundation to that, right? And so, you know, I don't have an issue with gay men, gay women. I don't have an issue with folks. My whole thing is in order, because when you start to talk about these issues, then a lot of them, not that you can't talk about them, but a lot of them create so much division amongst us. And there are many reasons why I am the way I am. There's many reasons why you are the way you are. And I have to give that grace to my brother, my sister, in community, because I got to give you room to a certain extent to be able to be you. Now, at the end of the day, if we're hurting each other, that's what I can't stand for. But I ain't got, it's no concern of mine, of what you do behind closed doors. None of that is a concern of mine. I'm talking about, and I've been fighting for organizer for the longest around, different forms of justice for ourselves, different forms of making it right for our people. I believe that if formerly incarcerated individuals
I'm glad you said that.
are given real opportunities, that will help to lift our entire community across the board.
Let me just jump in here, John. Mass incarceration is a huge demon on our people. Maryland incarcerates at a higher rate than any state in the United States. Baltimore has been documented as the home of segregation going back to 1910 when these ordinances have come in place. But getting back to mass incarceration, America represents 5% of the world population, yet we have 25% of the world's inmates. We have more inmates than China, which is 5, 6, 7 times bigger than the United States. Where does reparations and mass incarceration, what is that nexus? Where do they overlap? Where do they connect? What's the relationship?
I mean, at the end of the day, the relationship is slavery. Slavery never stopped. And reparations. And so, like, this is part of why we have these discussions, because I'm not presenting and don't want to present myself as an expert on reparations, but I do have my opinions about what that looks like. But I've never been incarcerated, right? So I can't speak on it, but I definitely work very close in lockstep with, brothers that's been on death row in the past and other brothers and sisters that have been incarcerated. But like, I think as far as reparations goes, resources is a major thing for us, because behind the word reparations is actually, to me, the word sustainability. We're looking to create sustainable neighborhoods, right? That's what we want. So that's what reparations is there for, to help create sustainability. So ultimately, a lot of the barriers that stop formerly incarcerated individuals from getting jobs, but also creating their own businesses at times. The education system kind of holding certain folks back from being able to potentially get their degree or even qualify for student loans. All the trades, all that stuff needs to be opened up. All of that stuff needs to be opened up, but because at the end of the day, and there's a lot of innocent people, brothers and sisters, that are behind bars. And then on top of that, there are many other of our folks that have gotten extreme sentencing and never deserved to be behind bars. Ideally, like, there are other countries that are operating on models that show that prison doesn't have to be a thing. But like, there has to be responsibility taken, not just within our community, but in the communities that have caused the harm and benefited off of our backs, our ancestors' backs during slavery. And there are still people benefiting off the backs and the shoulders of these brothers and sisters that are locked up right now. I think it came out in the news the other day that in Louisiana, I think at Angola prison, that there was a funneling of some money that these brothers was doing, working for corporations, and money going to the corporations that they didn't know was happening. That's slavery, right? Like, and so what we have to also be open to is different systems of economies. So at this point, many of our neighborhoods need to be looking at bartering. And bartering can also help to create more of a unified community, because that makes you have to have relationships with people. And a lot of that will cut down on so much of the things that we do to one another that are violent and things of that nature. But like the today's economy in other communities and all that, compared to many of our communities, is so much further ahead that it may be very difficult to bring us up to speed. Not to say that we shouldn't work for it, but at this point in time, like what people don't realize is in Baltimore City, hacking is a form of bartering. Hacking is a form of bartering. There's already a system, a community system that's set up to where if we ever wanted to boycott, we organize the folks that are hacking, right? And we could do that's already in place, but it could be hard to see because of so much other stuff that's going on. But as an organizer, I come in and I see these things, I see these systems, right? And it just takes for the cooperation of community, other community leaders to kind of come and put those things in place. You know, at the end of the day, like, you know, and it's not that I don't have to be the head of anything. I don't have to spearhead and run everything, because it's too many people in our community for one person or two people or a certain amount of people to just be controlling and running it. It should be a system of unifying, and that's already there with hacking. Potentially, part of that is because, you know, the capitalistic system, people need money, people need to go places, and there's a risk in taking hacks or giving hacks at times. But even during the times to where you know, our homicide rate was the highest, hacking was still going on. Even when with so much violence going on, hacking is still happening. That means that there's still some trust to build off of. There's still great opportunities for us to create self-sustainable communities and move on from depending on as I hear the brother Adam Jackson say, white institutions and things of that nature. So
I got to get this one question into you, John.
All right.
Food. You from down south. Baltimore is the last southern city. We need farms. We done left the farms. We wanted to get out of the farms. We wanted to come to Chicago, Baltimore, Brooklyn. What about food insecurity? Is that a part of reparations? Because they feed us a lot of food. We got cancer. We got breast cancer. We got diseases in our community like never before. And I believe it has a lot to do with the food and a lot of these what do you call it? Baby prevention. What do you call that? A lot of the birth control. A lot of the birth control that is going on in our community. And we're suffering from the food and the drugs, the Food and Drug Administration.
So
we need food and we need less drugs.
So, you know, what I've learned, we definitely need farms and land. That's one of the reasons why I asked the brother Eric Jackson of Black Year Institute to speak on the film. And you know, he had a farm up in Cherry Hill at one point in time. But like what I've also learned with a lot of our folks is that like we've been taken out of the realm of education as to why we need farms and why it's important for you to eat fresh food, because we have been dependent on corner store food for so long. We've been dependent on something you can just pop in the oven or the microwave, pizza, fries and all that for so long that there's going to have to be a shift in thinking in all areas, but in this area, a shift in knowing why it's important for you to get your food out the ground, how to prepare it, but not just how to prepare it, how to store it. Because then if you don't know how to store your food, now that threatens your inner house economy, because now you're buying more things. So that means that you're potentially going to go back to that corner store to buy frozen food or things with all kind of preservatives in them so you can warm up and eat it and your babies can eat it. But at the end of the day,
You
It's not
poisoning
healthy.
yourself.
You're yes. Yes. So like these are the traps that I'm speaking of, right? Like the awakening, and it ain't just one trap. they set the whole room up. The whole geography is full of traps. It doesn't matter if you're having trouble paying your bills and getting by, or if you're a college student. Them loans and all of that, man, those are all traps. Those are them student loans, hundreds, thousands of dollars of student loans. Those are all traps to kind of keep us in a place to where we're paycheck to paycheck, right? And then, you know, goes back to the importance of self-sustainable, building our own schools. We're not talking about anything any different from any other community that's out there that they have. We're working to have our own. Ain't a damn thing wrong with that. But we have to realize that within ourselves. And we can't be scared to say the word reparation.
John,
we can't be scared.
We got to get out of here. But I was just wondering, are you going to grace us with your oratorical skills? Can you share some of your rap with us?
Oh, man, you tripping. Oh, you bugging. But look, I'll see if I can remember one of the last rhymes I wrote before I said I'm done. And this was 2004. All right? Listen, war has never been so neglected. My own government steals hope. I'm feeling disrespected because they get away, but we get locked away for what they brought this way. The system built our race, so we get caught up all kind of ways. So let me say, you don't really care about my block the way you cherish your neighborhood, your side, your neck of the woods. We dying over a substance, and y'all just let it pass, making laws that make it worse. You're still hanging our ass. So do something. Politicians is fronting like they gonna move. They only want your vote, so which evil are you gonna choose? That's 2005. That's 2005. I'm glad I got your approval, black man.
I say, black man. We're going to put this website up here one more time. Any final thoughts you want to share with the people?
Tomorrow, 6 p.m., Arena Players. Come out, see the film, be a part of the discussion. Tomorrow, Wednesday, February 21st, 6 p.m. at Arena Players.
May Black history be in your soul today, tomorrow, and every day. Bless your seed, bless that baby, and your entire family. Keep up the work. I ain't but a phone call away. Big ups to Tanera Collins, to Marshall Collins, and all of the people who have helped you on your journey.
Marshall, big love.
That's my soldier, big brother.
Hey, man, that's absolutely why the reason I love him, man. He's become like a second father, man.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate him.
Up to date, down tomorrow, do your day and everything will follow. Nothing to it but to do it. I got to do it, regardless of how I feel. I am somebody. I am my brother's
somebody. Peace.
Good morning, world.